But the downside is because we don't make a decision, then sometimes we are a bit slower than some VC, right? Who have all in place system, etc.
Visitors kembali hadir bersama saya Yen Yusra dan kali ini kita akan berbincang-bincang dengan Angin. Sudah hadir bersama saya David dari Angin. Hi David.
Hello.
Did I pronounce it right? Angin or Angin?
Angin, yeah.
Angin ya. Just for those of you who doesn't know about Angin, Angin is Angel Investor Network ya, David ya. Maybe you can introduce yourself. What is your position and what is Angin?
Yeah, so I'm actually, you can hear, I cannot hide, I'm actually French, but I've been in Jakarta for about 8 years, and I've been managing Angin since 2015, so about 5 years. And what is Angin, as you mentioned, right? It stands for the Angel Investment Network Indonesia, which was our initial model to basically work with wealthy individuals and helping them to invest in early stage companies we call startups, right? But also SMEs or social enterprise. And what happened over time is we changed a lot our model, right? Because we are also a startup ourselves. We have, we don't depend on government support or grant and donation. So we have to invent our own business model, services in order to continue running the operation. So we become basically a mix of a consulting company because we work with a lot of organizations to conduct research, run events, and develop training programs for entrepreneurs. But the core business is really to be an intermediary between the capital, the investors, and the startup. And our investors are not anymore only angel investors or individuals, because we also work a lot with accelerators like Indigo, TINC, Telkomsel, or VC as well. So yeah, we literally operate like I call it like a Jimbatan between entrepreneurs and an investor to be sure the fundraising journey is done properly.
Okay, so talk to me about the difference between angel investor, corporate venture of CVC and VC. Is there similarity in terms of how you deal with startups, or do you find angel investor is more desirable in terms of much more easier to get involved with the startup to approach you guys?
Yeah. So I would say, just to be clear, the difference between Angin as an angel network and a VC, for instance. A VC usually collect the money first in a fund and then disburse the money. And you have a team, a full-time team, which is making decision on where to invest, right? In our case, we don't collect the money first. I stay as an intermediary, and the investment goes directly from the investor to the startup. In a sense that myself and my team, we don't make a decision because the decision still belongs to the investor because we didn't collect the money in a fund. But the investor rely on us in terms of analysis, advice, etc. Right? So that's the big difference between a VC and an angel network. The flexibility I think that it offers to us is I'm not tied to like one strategy, one investment thesis, etc. I can invest in very different stage, sectors, industry, geography, because it's like I have so many investors I can deal with, more than 120. So I can have a very different type of money I work with, etc. But the downside is because we don't make a decision, then sometimes we are a bit slower than some VC, right? Who have all in place system, etc. I would say the big difference with VC money is, again, it's about flexibility as well, right? We have different type of return expectation. VC usually expect more or less the same type of return, right? They need to invest in quite aggressive businesses, looking for market share. That's what usually they look for, technology leverage or business model leverage. We can invest in more conservative business. If it takes 10 or 15 years, it's okay. The investors have been, families who build wealth and groups for 2 or 3 generations. So we have a lot of flexibility actually. And I would say as well, the value of working with individuals is really the value they bring, right? They bring experience, they bring expertise, and the money comes directly from them. So as we talked about it before, it's like the team changed a lot in VC, right? So if you get invested today with team A, maybe in 2-3 years the team will change. You never know. But when you deal with an angel investor, the money will stay the same. You get invested by Budi. Pabudi will never change in 6 years. You're still gonna deal with Pabudi, so it's quite interesting.
So how does it work though? You have different kind of angels, right? Right now, is it still the same from the beginnings in 2015, maybe more, or you guys are giving the chance for the newer to come to join? How does it work?
So it's an interesting question because we work. It's like a membership, it's like a club, right? People come in and out, right?
Yeah.
And as any club, sometimes you don't need us anymore because first you change. You might not want to invest anymore because you have made a couple of investments. So Anyin is not useful for you. So it's perfect for us. It's fine. We have played our job to help them investing. They don't want to do investment anymore. It's not for them, or they just don't have enough cash anymore. Economic situation changes, so they stop become our member. So we put them into sort of the alumni section. Some investors, they still make investment, but they decided to grow bigger. So they become, from angel investor, they become VC. And then we are less useful for them because they have learned with us and basically graduated, right? So it's also a good story for us. Some also realize it's not for them. Some angels join, they were not very excited about angel investment. It's not for everybody, right? So we also leave. So we accept ongoing basis angel investors. Every week we receive requests, we filter because we want also to have a certain type of quality, commitment, values in our network. That's what right now we have 120, and in 2015 we were 15, 2016 30. So we grow step by step, right? But we try to remain still picky who we work with to get this kind of exclusivity and value alignment as well.
So talk to me about startups. I mean, when it comes to creating the startup, is it based on the angels' requests, or you see that this trend is more familiar with the angel because of their background? How does it work when you guys creating the right startup so the angels can join in to invest?
Yeah. So usually what happens is Anyin is in charge of sourcing, right? So we are the one going around talking to investors, going to events to actually look for investment opportunity, right? And because every angel who joined Anyin, we talk to them, we met them, they fill in a questionnaire. So we get a very good sense of what they are looking at. So we know each one of them. So when we do this analysis, this curation, we have in mind what the investor look at, the type of sectors, industry, the type of team they like, the type of ticket size. So we aggregate a lot of criteria to get a sense of what is more or less investable from Anyin point of view, right? What we really care is each investor, they work with us on the due diligence as well. So we can do the first curation. So at least when the deal we send them every 2 weeks is curated, so they don't receive crappy applications. So we pre-filter. But if it gets serious, we ask them to join the analysis because it's important for their education, and we don't want them to rely only on us to make a decision. So then we equip them with tools, we equip them with research report analysis to guide their process. Some investors are very autonomous. They don't need us so much to make a decision because they have made more deals than us, and it's perfect as well. We will just provide maybe one layer of analysis, like a background check on the founder. The angels doesn't have time, doesn't have all the connections, so we will complete the analysis on very niche analysis. So it really depends case by case. It's quite different. But the principle of our analysis is very similar to a VC. We look at extremely good founders, a very well articulated team, solution that demonstrate level of traction or adoption, market size, etc. So the analysis remain the same really, with a VC, a private equity, or an impact investor.
So one of your portfolio is Berggrens, right? Berggrens.
Yeah, is that correct? Yeah, Berggrens, correct. Yeah.
So how do you see the startup based with offering food, all kind of food like probably coffee or like burger will grow next year? Probably. Yeah. You see more coming startup like that?
We see, and it's quite interesting because we invested in 2016, so it was a deal we helped like a year after I joined, right? Okay. And at that time when we invested, so we brought a couple of angel investors, The company was very small, technically
Yeah.
it was two restaurants, I think one in Bintaro, one in Tibet. And it was not necessarily seen sometimes as the most scalable business model. We saw its restaurant is not sexy, it's heavy, or vegan food, it's only for Indian or expat, or it's a niche market, right? And then conditions change a lot. The appetite for food startup grow a lot. They realize that actually you can scale this kind of business with different model. It could be a franchise or very small, low capital intensive type of implementation in malls or different. So yeah, it become actually an interesting model.
Yeah.
From a restaurant, you can actually pivot to also be a food manufacturing. You can go upstream to control the supply, go downstream to control the distribution. So there's different, I think, model you can develop from one platform, which was the initial Burgreens model. Right now, you saw they launch a new company called Green Butcher. So restaurant can also distribute their products. So you have Burgreens, the restaurant, and the Green Butcher, the food manufacturing. And from just something not super appealing for investor, at least institutional investor like VC, right now there's so many VC being interested. And one of the VC I'm also part of, called Teja Ventures, invested in March. A new investor called C4D came as well in this deal, and we are looking to raise basically a 7-digit, type of investment that should be announced very soon. So yeah, we are super bullish about food, even like cosmetic, everything which is like consumer goods, right? Consumer products. That's quite exciting for us. Yeah.
Yes. So you've been working with a lot of startup founders from Indonesia, or probably in Southeast Asia as well, right? How do you compare Indonesian startups these days with other startup founders outside Indonesia? Do you see our startup founders more mature, more knowledgeable, more wise in terms of playing the fundraising game, or you don't see nothing much changes since 2015 until late 2020?
No, I mean, we have seen a lot of changes, because even when I came here 8 years ago, so I was running an accelerator 8 years ago for social enterprise. Just even talking about the social enterprise landscape, it was very difficult to find very good founders. They were very NGO driven, coming with no business like acumen and knowledge. It was very difficult. Now I will say right now, you see so many amazing people, right? Whatever it is, ex-professionals, ex-consultant, bankers, jumping into entrepreneurship, coming from all these unicorn. You see also local university, Praseta Mulia, Binus, UGM, producing actually very strong founders who really understand, what the issue of their countries are, how to run a business, how to scale a business. And I'm not talking so much as well about, all the diaspora, educated overseas Indonesian who also come back with a lot of knowledge, network. So yeah, I mean, it's quite impressive. And there's so much money that has been put into developing the ecosystem through education, workshop, events. Now content is so much available.
Yeah.
So many mentoring program. Some are good, some are bad, but yeah, there's actually, this has nurtured a lot the founders, right? And then the one who knows, as you mentioned, who knows how to play the fundraising game, then yeah, we see, I mean, a lot of, some entrepreneurs, they come from the VC side. So, or they already raised money before, so they know exactly the life cycle, what to do, they have the connection, so they get even funded before they even start their business. Right? And the network is small. The world of VC and all these entrepreneurs is quite small, at least in Jakarta, right? Everybody knows each other more or less. So yeah, quite impressed by the quality. Yeah.
So we talk about next year, right? Is it something that you are looking forward for with the startup category that will rise, or do you see that still nothing more changes when it comes to categories, still the same old startups that will rise in Indonesia? How do you see 2021 for Indonesian startup ecosystem, David?
Yeah, so I see, just even for us, right? I think it's going to be an exciting journey next year, because we have to adapt our model as well. As I mentioned, we're not a VC. So a VC is very simple. not saying it's an easy job, but you raise money, you charge 2% management fee to your LPs, and when you exit, you give them 20% back. So it's quite an established, we call it an asset class, right? Because it's quite structured and established. For us, it's different. We have to change our model, right? Right now, we are membership based. We used to be very driven by the investor, so meaning we only charge the investor for the services. We started to charge the entrepreneur as well for some fundraising we are doing. So I think for us, it's already reshaping our services because the market has changed as well, right? That's why we need to respond to new needs, increase competition from certain VC, from even grant and, kind of free money that competes with our investors. When it comes to, I think what we see exciting is things get decentralized a lot. So we see a lot of efforts to go outside Jakarta and outside Java, right? So what do you see? More VC being locally based, right? Look at BRI, Gayo Capital. This is a full Indonesian team. They do their DD in Indo. They invest in entrepreneurs who don't even speak English, which will never have happened that much a couple of years ago, right? So that's quite exciting, this kind of more localized, I would call it localized effort to invest in more locally grown entrepreneurs, not the typical one, that you see all the time, educated overseas, ex-management consultant. So I think that will reveal new hidden gem in a way, this effort. I see obviously more money coming in, so we have a lot of requests for money, which is a bit different, who look at different sectors, like as you mentioned, like food, handicraft, cosmetics. So all these consumer products is quite exciting. And obviously, we already know that a lot of our portfolio are aiming to raise next year, right? And a lot involves sustainability, waste management, etc. So I think the whole theme, circular economy, etc., is going to be quite exciting. And so we are and look, whatever COVID has hit our industry, money has not disappeared. There's still a lot of money available for founders. Everybody pivoted a lot, so there's going to be more needs next year. So it's going to be quite fun.
Yeah, I can see that more funding news will come to Daily Social as well. Last question, David. What is the best approach for startup founders to contact you? I mean, is it the same like the approach that the VC has taken, or you guys from Angin have different kind of approach to find the right startup for the first meeting at least? David, maybe you can give us some tips so they can join you.
So we have an application online, right? So there's a questionnaire to fill in, and I can tell that there's someone, actually 2 or 3 people looking at it all the time. So we review all the application. We never left application on the side. We do have delay someone, but at least it's not an empty recipient where nobody going to check it out. So we have our system, our CRM, etc. That's good. But I will say if you really want to be sort of put on top of the list, right? Sometimes contacting us directly through LinkedIn works, honestly. I do check it out if it's professional and well done, right?
Yes.
And because I can check how many connections we have in common, etc. Then I guess we get a lot of referrals, right? So if you have someone in your network that is connected to us through, it could be a previous alumni event, staff, then we are more inclined to respond faster, right? That's the truth as well, right? It's still it's a relationship-based type of work, right? But I think as long as really the deck is very important, the way, it doesn't need to be fancy with a lot of design, but it's very clear, and the approach is professional. We get we reviewed probably around 200 to 250 decks per month. It's very disappointing when someone is not professional, is not clear. This is clear rejection. But it's pretty straightforward to reach out to us. We are still small enough, to be able to treat everybody. And
yes. Okay, thank you, David.
Hopefully
our audience can get good insight from Angin and maybe can approach you as well after this interview. So thank you for your time, and I'll let you get back to work from home again. I'll see you soon, okay?
Bye.
Okay, bye, David.
Bye.